when it comes to brand deals, for those who aren't super familiar with the way that kind of journey works, is that most short form creators don't really get a lot of money from the ads that play in the feed of, let's say, TikTok, as just an example, right? If you imagine scrolling through TikTok, you see a bunch of, creators' videos, like maybe it's just somebody who's recording their front-facing camera, maybe somebody's edited something nice together, whatever, it doesn't matter. You're scrolling through, you watch a couple of those videos that you really like, and then eventually up comes an ad. Well, guess what? The ad is just like all the other content, so you can swipe on right by. Mm-hmm. So first of all, that's a problem with the way that they monetize that in the first place. But even then, TikTok has now, through the years, done several versions of monetizing views on their platforms. Initially, they didn't really monetize at all. Eventually, they did something called the Creator Fund, where there was a fixed up pool of money, where if you got a certain percentage of the views, then you got a certain percentage of the pool of that money. And so the more creators were successful, the less successful each individual view was worth. It was crazy. And then finally, just recently, I think in the last year and a half, they've said, hey, if you get a view, then you'll get a share of the ad dollars. Now, there's a caveat, which is that it has to be a longer view. I think it has to be like a minute long, basically, before you share in that. And basically what they've done is they've recreated what YouTubers have had since, not day one, but since very, very long ago, over a decade plus, which is AdSense, where you get a share of the ad money that runs on the platform. On TikTok, that pool is much, much smaller because it's a worse place to advertise and it's a worse place to split up that money. It's harder to do that. So what do short form creators do? How do these creators end up making money? They end up doing brand deals. What's a brand deal? Well, a creator connects with a brand that they're interested in advertising. The brand connects with them and they decide together, they sign a contract and they say, hey, we're going to pay you this much money for this number of posts and in this format, maybe with this talking point or this creative. And the creator comes around and they do those things. They create the content for the brand and then they get paid for the creation of that content. It's just kind of like traditional advertising to some degree, but it's an actual video on your feed. This is how short form creators make pretty much all of their money, right? It's actually a huge problem in its own right, because there's a whole host of things about just the level of competition that's going on when it comes to creating these brand deals. There's a bunch of issues with it being not we believe the most effective form of advertising. That's just our belief. And
because people swipe through it.
Just like any other ad on those platforms, right? In fact, we've heard people say that literally on this show, that they just swipe on right by, right? And the biggest problem of all is just the level of competition that is beginning to become a problem for these short form creators, right? So just in any, like really zooming out, sorry to go nerdy here, but in any market, if there's lots of competition, right, the price of things go down, which is great for somebody who's buying at the end of the day, right? In this case, the amount of competition is all the creators competing for attention from a viewer at the end of the day. So the more content is created, the less each piece of content gets views, and then the less each individual creator is valuable to an individual brand. So this brings us to Sora. So if you imagine kind of like over time, the history of video production all the way back at the beginning of the 1900s, all the way until now, what did it take at the very beginning to create a movie? Benji.
Oh my gosh.
1900.
1900, where you're talking like a whole team of people. Like there had to be a set that was built. They weren't just filming on the street.
Yes.
So you had engineers and craftsmen and carpenters just to build the set alone, which was a whole production in itself. Then you had actors and actresses and supporting cast. Then the camera was huge, and you had probably like a multi-team person running that camera. Then you had like crazy big lights.
Yes.
I'm thinking about a movie about Charlie Chaplin, right? And it was just, It was huge. And so lots of money. It was a whole industry. There's a reason it was all started in Hollywood, because literally, that's where they stored all the gear, okay? And the people that worked in the industry lived there, period.
Yeah, and you're not even talking about literally building the actual cameras. They had to build the cameras like in ways that were hugely expensive.
Yeah. Like every time they had to put them together, right?
Thomas Edison, right, was the guy who kind of patented, I think, the film or something like that. And so like they literally had to invent new technologies to make this happen beforehand. That's all to say, it was very concentrated industry with very few people. And if you had access to these cameras, you could inherently make a little bit of money just because you had access to the camera, right? Okay, fast forward, you get through the Hollywood era that you're talking about, Charlie Chaplin, you go up John Wayne, all the way through the end of the 90s, Bonnie and Clyde, everything like that. And by this point, Hollywood's a big industry, TV is around, TV's making tons of money as well. And what comes on the scene? The internet. The internet makes it so that everybody has access to one of the problems that people were running into, which was that by now, a lot of people had like home camcorders. Maybe they were making home videos on little DV tapes or something like that that they could then plug in, if they had a computer, into their computer and like show their families or something like that. But let's say you wanted to get that video to your entire family. How would you do that? Well, you'd put it on another DV tape and you'd walk it on over to their house or mail it to them. There's no way to get that video distributed to multiple people. That's what the internet revolutionized at that time. It said if you have a piece of content, at the beginning it was mostly text and maybe some photos, you can get it to someone else instantly and basically for free. It was essentially for free. Well, then what continues to happen? Video cameras get cheaper. It gets internet connections get better. Computers get better. And so what comes on the scene at this point? Finally, there's enough technology in the world. There's enough access to these networks. There's enough access to these tools, and you get YouTube. And so YouTube was revolutionary because it basically was just there to host videos online. And guess what? I create that same DV tape that I would have had to give my family. I just email them a link to the video that I've hosted on YouTube. Or if I'm a blogger, instead of hosting a gigantic video file on my site, I upload it to YouTube and post a embed or a link on my blog so my blog readers can see my face on YouTube. Suddenly, you've born an entire new industry. And so this then continues, and YouTube begins to grow up the AdSense thing that we talked about, where you can make a little bit of money just for posting on YouTube. The creator industry, I mean, you were part of this at the very beginning, starts to form around it where you can start making brand deals. And suddenly, just like before, more people have access to making money by creating content. That was the whole premise of YouTube Secrets and Video Influencers when you and Sean were doing that at the time. Then what comes on the scene in the middle of the 2010s? TikTok and short form video. And this takes it to the next level, which is like, you always describe it like there's like an atomic bomb dropped on YouTube, or there's like an invasion of the YouTube space or something like that. And essentially there's this huge disruption, this earthquake in the foundations of what it means to be an online video creator. Because guess what? There's this whole other platform where it's easier to create content than ever before. It's easier to get distribution than ever before, and more people are watching than ever before. And so suddenly you have more competition than there ever was before, except for the fact that TikTok was growing at the time. Now, at this point in 2025, everything is solidly set. The history of Hollywood, the history of YouTube, and the beginnings of TikTok as well all have brought us to this moment where TikTok they're still growing, but relatively, they're pretty stagnant, right? YouTube is solid, and they're really growing on the TV. The television is kind of going down, and Hollywood is kind of like shaky, and we don't know if it'll survive. That's a whole other conversation for another point. The point is that there have been more and more people creating, and it's created more and more competition than ever before, which has driven down the value of creators, especially on short form. Now, Sora enters the scene. So if before the gear itself was the thing that was the limiting factor, that was no longer the case when camcorders came on the scene. Then the distribution, putting that on the DV tape was the limiting factor. That was no longer the case with YouTube. Then discovery was the limiting factor. That was no longer the case with the algorithm. And then finally, the actual creation process itself was the limiting factor. That was no longer the case with TikTok. Well, that has now been brought to the next level altogether. With Sora, if you are posting, it's so easy to create a piece of content that the level of competition in short form content is going to go up literally exponentially over the next several years. And that means the competition is going to go up exponentially over the next several years. And so what does that mean for creators at the end of the day? Well, my perspective, and I think your perspective too, is that the value of brand deals has to go down because of that. Now, there's a whole host of other things that are going to happen because of that, but I'm curious about your take and your response to my perspective there.
Wow, you actually did my history lesson I was going to do.
Oh, really?
A way grander, longer version of it.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I get carried away.
I want to actually paint a picture that gives you a little bit of a different perspective of the same problem, okay? So fast forward this history lesson to the days of TikTok, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts. You're really only limited to the amount of time it took to record a video,
Yes.
to get a video up, and the caption that you have to type, okay? Some of the number one pieces of content that's showing up on my feed right now on Instagram Reels, that's where I do most of my short form content, is just talking head videos of a guy named John Cortese. He does Seattle content, and he does 5 to 8 a day, and he'll update you on, current events. He'll like cover the news, or he'll talk about like his favorite spot in Seattle to grab like a taco, okay? And some of them it's just one take, and he records it, he puts a caption on it, boom. But still, a 60-second Instagram Reels takes 60 seconds plus the amount of time to type, right? With Sora, with this AI video generation app, you can make how long of the video can you make? What's the amount of time?
I still haven't figured that out. I think it's under 2 minutes though.
Okay, let's just say 60 seconds, same compared to John Cortese, except it's just the prompt. So you're only limited by the amount of time it takes for you to type into Sora. Think about this, everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's number one. So John Cortese now can make a 60-second video just from typing. How long does it take him to type a prompt? It could be 10 seconds. I mean, I use the voice-generated prompts, for ChatGPT. But that's John Cortese, a creator. What about the aspiring creator that's just coming on the scene that has no video skills? They're like, hey, I don't even have to learn how to, use a camera, use my phone, or edit. I just talk to the prompt, right? I just type in the prompt.
They never even pick up a camera.
But then it doesn't stop there. What about all the other people that have been too afraid to be on camera, that didn't want to be a creator, or they're just like, it was just too much work to create content? Now, again, they can type. Then let's talk about the other side of this. Brands, businesses, just like any entrepreneur that, again, it was harder for them to get into the scene because that wasn't what they were good at or what they wanted to even be good at. That's hence why they hire creators, okay? Now they can do it, but it gets even better. What if they rent your likeness? So iJustine right now is kind of the big creator. She's a female tech creator in YouTube and social media, going all in. I think they partnered up with her. I don't know for sure, but I'm seeing a lot of her content. Now Samsung, if they want to work with iJustine and she has the ability to lease out her likeness, can just do it. And then the creators at the agency, these people that had these ideas for these campaigns, now can create the content without the creator. Now, in this case, iJustine might make some money. Or guess what? What if Samsung doesn't even want to work with a creator? They're going to create their own person. I've been saying this, like a good example is Trader Joe's. I've always thought Trader Joe's should have an actual Joe. They can have a Joe now. They can create their own avatar and make him do whatever the heck they want him to do. Now, will they be able to create the store's environment perfectly? No, but I'm telling you, in a year, they will be, because I think where it gets like this is a little bit of a theory, they can put their avatar in an actual store eventually, okay? But still, the point is this: now brands and everyone can create their own avatar, whether of themselves or this made up one.
Or, as you say, partnering with a creator to do essentially a brand deal.
Take all those different characters, all those different people, and all those different opportunities to create content. All that's competing against every short form creator right now. Every piece of Reels, TikToks, or YouTube Shorts that people are organically putting up. So short form right now, I mean, what's his name? Casey Neistat said it, is cooked. I actually believe that. Just like when shorts came into YouTube, it was like doubling the competition. Yeah. Because now when someone goes to YouTube, they decide, do I want a shorts or do I just want a proper longer YouTube video, right? Guess what? Now people aren't even choosing. The algorithms is going to put it in front of you. So if you got a Michael Jackson video in a fast food store and he's dancing and it's entertaining enough, the algorithm doesn't care. It's just going to put it right in front of you. And it has put it in front of me. You know how many people share Sora content with me? A ton of people. This is at the beginning. It's going to get to a point where people don't care if it's AI or real life. Yeah. They're going to just share whatever is most engaging, entertaining, and that fits like whatever they're interested in at the moment. And that's just the beginning.
I think the bottom line of what we're both saying is that the level of competition is it's gonna increase on all levels for short form, right? I mean, it already has for short form. That was kind of the whole point of the history lesson there. But for me, I'm like, oh, well, just the content creation itself is, but you bring it a step further, actually, which is what you're saying is like, these brands may not even need creators anymore because they'll just create their own content. Why wouldn't they?
Can I talk about this?
Yeah, tell me.
I've done a lot of brand deals, a ton, and I pride myself on doing really creative things, using my imagination, integrating the product, the company, the business, the brand in a way where it isn't skippable. It's part of the creative. It's part of the content in a way that's not like a ad spot.
Yeah.
That's what makes me valuable. That's what makes Judy get paid the highest rates, because we know how to do that. And even if the campaign manager or the person at the ad agency that's working on behalf of the brand has a good idea, they need us to execute it because we have the audience. But think about this person that's been working at an ad agency and they've done a lot of campaigns, have a lot of experience, and they have really good ideas.
Yeah.
Now they can test those ideas, but not just one time with a creator and with this budget. They can test it as many times as they can prompt. This is what I'm saying. This is the problem here when it comes to brand deals, period. Not just for short form, by the way, even for long form eventually. This campaign person can just be like, you know what? Well, let's take Trader Joe's, for example. I want my Joe guy, right? Like, so Trader Joe's, say they have a Joe guy. I want Joe to just like run through a field of bread and just like at lightning speed, frolicking in a sea of bread. Instead of being wheat, it's like a sea of like bread, right? Growing out of the ground, right?
For sure.
And I want Joe to end his sprint by grabbing a loaf of bread and saying, hey, we now have sourdough at Trader Joe's. I mean, I just came up with that right on the spot. And there's campaign people that are geniuses creatively that are coming up with ideas for the brands, and then they pitch it to influencers. Now they can do it on their own with their own character. And that's just one. And that took me, not even 15 seconds. So in a workday, how many ideas could you just test?
Yeah.
Or better, you just put it out there and just see what it does.
Yeah.
Now it's like you don't need the creator. This now is starting to sound kind of doom and gloom. Don't need the creator. You can test infinitely. It's like low risks, because if you put out a whole bunch of things, algorithm's only going to put out the winners. It's a complete volume game. And guess what? That person at the agency that's doing this, they're going to be even better the next day and the next day. And they're going to be good at the prompt. And guess what? Sora's going to get better too. So at one point, we won't know who's a creator, who's a campaign, agency rep, or even somebody at the brand, or just like a random user. Like, think about this. Think about kids. I believe this is the next addiction for kids. Gaming was the addiction for 20, 30 years, 40 years. I'm telling you this, for a certain group of kids that wanted to be YouTubers 10 years ago, now are like, I want to be like a AI content generator person. And I know exactly what prompts. That's a Gary Vee style like statement. I'm telling you, record that, post that, and in 10 years, you're going to see kids are going to be known for that. They're going to create an avatar, whether it looks like them or their own doing. They will become celebrities if they want to. They don't even have to. Their avatar can become a celebrity. And then you start getting into like what is that? That world, like Half-Life. It's like a virtual world. Because once we get into the virtual world, your avatar that's in these videos now can live in an actual world that we can go into eventually, kind of like Tron. Like Tron is happening now. Tron, the digital world that you can go and live in, this is the beginning of it. And there's going to be kids, creators, and agency creatives that are going to take advantage of this and just rock it. And that's why, actually, going back to myself, I am going to test it and use it, create an avatar of myself, create other avatars, but I'm also going to continue vlogging even more now, because this is the only way to survive in this new environment where there's going to be this creation.